Hello and welcome back to the Developing Solutions with Sitecore Print Experience Manager video training series. In this video, we'll be discussing the PXM project background that we'll be using to build our PXM projects. So first off, we're using the Launch Sitecore example site, and there's a number of reasons we're using this. First off, it's a real-world Sitecore reference implementation. It contains code, content, a presentation layer, as well as containing metadata within the content. So we can start to show some of those content interrelationships in our print output document itself. And lastly, there's personalization, and we're going to be using some of those personalization elements for some of the advanced use cases within our training scenarios. So for example, there's a ability to tag articles as favorites, and then we can use that information, which is stored in the user profile, and we can output a PDF containing a list of those exact articles that a user defines. If you load the site www.launchsitecore.net, you can see the Launch Sitecore site in action. And by actually registering and logging in, you can download a package which contains the site itself, and that includes the content, the code, and the presentation layer. If we do a little bit of navigation through the site, you can see that it's incorporating a number of aspects of Sitecore, and in particular XDB tracking. So as we go through the site, you can see pattern matching, campaigns, goals, pages visited, etc., etc. From a print perspective, we're particularly concerned in the articles themselves, and the fact that you can open up articles and see lots of print content, including images on a page, as well as the fact that these articles are interlinked. So for example, if you go to Brandon Royal, you can see that he's in turn tagged with a number of articles. And this is important when we're working with the print content, because the print content, when we're outputting the article, we want to see the author associated with that as well. So we're going to do some custom coding based upon that. And lastly, if you log in, you can see those favorites added as well. And we're going to do that on their local instance, but you'll need to register and log in to download a copy of Launch Sitecore, and we'll go through those installation steps in a later video. Next, we have our book design, and this is actually an InDesign file that is often coming to you as a PXM developer from your internal design team. And we're going to look at a few use cases and how to automate this output. But essentially, what we've got here is really almost like a presentation layer, but for print instead of Sitecore for web. And we're going to utilize a lot of those same concepts of separation of presentation layer from content. But we're going to go through that, and we're going to be working to output a design that is very similar to what the designer has provided to us, but of course in a much more automated fashion. So we have our source of content in launchsitecore.net, and we have the design that was provided to us by our designer for what that output should be. Now, what exactly is the project brief and the use case for what we're doing here with PXM? Well, first and foremost, and in the simplest example, we have the designer. They're sick and tired of copying and pasting the same article content every time a new article is made. So what we're going to do early on in the session is build out a PXM project such that you can simply drag and drop a new Sitecore article, and it will create and flow into that document within InDesign. And that way they don't have to do the effort of copying and pasting that information from the email or from Microsoft Exchange, or however your previous method of sharing content is. Next, we'll take this one step further, and we'll look at what the marketing director wants. So the marketing director says, well, here's two things. One, every time I have a new article, I need to get my designer to do that. So we're going to automate that already. But next, what they do on a regular basis is take those articles and assemble those into a book. And so what we're going to do is automate the production of that book creation. And we're going to use a lot of the same concepts within Sitecore, namely repeating through and iterating through all the chapters and all the articles to not only produce an article on the fly, which is what we're doing for the designer, we're actually going to produce the full book based upon all the content in Launch Sitecore for the marketing director to assemble in a book. And lastly, we have the web director. They want to be using PXM as part of their outreach and lead generation campaigns so that when people are visiting Launch Sitecore and they're selecting favorite articles, they want to be able to deliver a personalized PDF on the fly. And that'll have their name and their information and the articles that the user on the site selected. And so those are really the scenarios that we're going to be working through in the order that we're going to be working through those, which is simplest to most complex.